Chiavuzzo. How you doing?
Hanging in there. I'm in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Not too far from Metuchen.
There we go, yeah.
Do you remember your first time playing this music?
My first exposure to your music was in grad school. It was unlike anything anybody else was writing in a very positive way. It was fun and challenging. My opinions haven't changed very much since that first encounter.
You've had a lot of time to develop an approach to playing in the band.
It's hard to talk about your music anyway, because I feel like whatever I start doing, I could contradict myself in 2 minutes. You have to constantly have your ears open, your head on a swivel. The second you stop paying attention, it's like falling into the abyss. You won't drown, but you'll come close.
For those 30 people, I know exactly what their oh shit eyes look like.
We don't know how we're going to get from A to B, but it always ends up feeling inevitable. If you have this agenda, if you have this plan to do it, you're never going to get there. So you have to stay open and aware and willing to make yourself vulnerable and exposed, which is really rewarding and equally terrifying.
It took me time to learn how to relinquish control absolutely in certain moments. What I've learned is I need to call the right people and I need to get the hell out of their way.
Some of those freer sections, at first it was just like, oh, it's open. So it's free and we have to play the outest shit anybody's ever heard. I feel like we're less afraid of those moments and less afraid to be lyrical. I think a lot of the writing forces us into these uncomfortable positions where you just have to embrace that discomfort.
I mean, look, if I'm going to get something out of you that you haven't played before, I have to put you in a situation that you haven't been in before. It lets you be the spontaneous musician that you are.
You just kind of sit back and embrace the discomfort of the space. That's when the really exciting and beautiful things happen. And there's so many moments like that. You just get to sit back and listen to somebody kind of mold something, whether it's one of Andy's solos or, Sam's soprano solo in the concerto. He would have played something completely different 10 years ago.
He would have played something completely different 10 days ago. We've transitioned from everything is happening to everything is permitted. And people are very aware. They're not responsible for the attention of the listener. They're responsible for the composition. Do you have a favorite track on the record?
It's so much fun to listen to through. It all ends up making sense. One thing leads very logically to another in really interesting ways. So it ends up feeling inevitable, but never predictable. I don't understand the science of how that works. I find myself coming back to, I remember the Molly Drake. There's something so nostalgic, something so pure and honest. It's really challenging. There's not a lot of notes to play, but it's very demanding. And you feel very exposed, which is appropriate for that song.
So I'd love to hear if you have any comment on this album as a protest record.
Where do you start and where do you end? The symphony, was kind of the narrative of that election cycle, and how naive we were to think like it couldn't get worse than that. And then here we are now. We all feel so much anxiety and tension and anger, and we have to direct it. Not that that's a solution to any of the things that we're protesting, but it's an important outlet for humanity. I don't want to just pat myself on the back. If I'm in this just to make myself feel better as a white male, then I'd be better off not being in it.
Creating protest music is not what we need to do. Creating protest music is a means of calling further attention to what we need to do. It's not in and of itself the action.
And as far as like the specific themes that you have, do those themes stand out in your mind before you start developing how to move from one to another?
But if you take like the violin concerto, Call and Answer with Brooke and Andy.
That's a beautiful melody.
Oh, thank you, man. What I was after was some sort of wide intervallic exploration that I could then fill in the gaps. The third movement, it's in rondo form, and the A sections are a reverse theme and variations. The last time you hear the melody, it's very simple and it's very short and very clear. So the first time you hear it, like in her entrance in the third movement, is like this torrent of notes. That's actually the thickest development of what is a very simple theme.
I learned something today.
There we go. Is there anything else that you would want people to know?
Nobody's chair serves its traditional function. Because the writing is not traditional big band. I think it's important for me to know when I'm the lead.
There are times where I hear lead Vito, and what I'm hearing is your phrasing, your articulation, your approach.
I feel like I could call out every person in the band for their moments and their voice and what they bring. I want to say something about everybody because they all had such a huge contribution.
Love to Rachel and the kids.
Please send my love to Brooke, who plays her ass off. Just sounds incredible.
I miss you, man. I really miss you.
Likewise.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.